There's absolutely people here struggling with addiction who are in active addiction. The pandemic has, increased that. It's reduced people's social connection, interaction, a lot of their touch points in recovery. I mean, we're seeing people, unfortunately, that are relapsing. That's absolutely happening in Hancock County and throughout Down East Maine.
You feel the tremors through the community. We have several people every year die of drug overdose. We've just had people recently found dead at home, and this just keeps on happening. My patients who are in treatment have friends and relatives and people they used to hang out with who they tell me are not getting treatment or are not addressing the problem. So, we know those folks are out there.
As a 20-year-old resident of this island, I started spending more time going out, and it kind of opened my eyes to what was actually going on around here. And once I started listening and looking for it, it became impossible to ignore. I have a couple of friends who were addicted to opiates. A couple of them are still alive today, thanks to Narcan. And a couple of them had overdosed and died because they did not have any help for their overdose. They didn't have access to Narcan.
I lost my younger sister, Debbie, to overdose of opioid medications. She was in a car accident, and they prescribed opioids for her, and then it was just a downward spiral from there. I got a phone call saying that Debbie was dead, and her son had found her in the morning.
But I know what it's like to lose a son that you dearly loved, and I don't want anybody else to go through this.
I was into opiates. It was mostly heroin. I was an IV user for a couple years. I'd say I started experimenting with drugs when I was about 14. I started an active addiction, I would say, when I was about 16. I had some issues where I had to give my kids to their father because I just couldn't take care of them anymore, and I knew that my addiction was to the point where I needed to do something or I probably not might make it anymore.
We tried to get him to go to counseling, wouldn't go. I don't understand how we didn't just drag him by his feet and bring him to a rehab. But you have to want to be cured.
I was ready to be in treatment and I was ready to get clean, but I think I had so many people around me that were still active that I kept wanting to fall back into that, oh, well, it's just once, or it's just for the weekend. And it's hard. It's hard to take that big step to do something that you know you need to do and then have so many people kind of just throw it in your face or make fun of you or pick on you for that decision. I had to hide my recovery for probably about 5 years. I think that's why a lot of addicts don't make it to recovery or just continue because they feel like everybody around them's giving up on them before they even start, so why should they?
I think for the island, there's a lot of shame. Parents don't want to come out. They're afraid to ask for help. They're afraid that they're going to lose their children. Everything is hush-hush.
I think the #1 problem on the island facing people who are in opiate addiction is silence. The silence of this disease swallows people. They're not able to ask for help because it's not safe to ask for help. It is, to some extent, safer to stay sick than it is to acknowledge that you have a problem with addiction and that you are in need of support.
When I finally started opening up about my recovery, there were so many people that shot me down and said, well, you'll never make it, or made jokes about my recovery to my children, to my family. I think if the island could actually support people who are going through it and stand by them, that would be a big help. We started doing things together. My kids started making little comments of, Mom, you're not so tired all the time. Or, Mom, you actually come out of your room. Or you're not yelling at us anymore. I'd just say just to try it, just to do it. Even if it takes a million times, keep trying.
Harm reduction is really important because it's the step keeping people alive until they can get the treatment. And every day, no matter what we do with harm reduction, you're keeping someone alive. That's another day, another chance for them to get help, to enter recovery, to get sober, to be there for their loved one, to be alive, and to live their life again.
There's a lot of ways that we're working now for harm reduction and trying to keep people safe and alive. The first thing, of course, is an naloxone, because if that had been available in the training, like Debbie's son was old enough to have been trained in that and to been able to say, here's what you do, and you do this, and you call 911, but it wasn't something that you openly discussed and trained for.
Everyone should have the Narcan training because it's so simple and it is non-harmful to people who are not actually experiencing an overdose, and anybody can learn to administer it in just a few minutes, and you can come upon somebody in any circumstance. You can be at the store, you could be at the boat races, you could be at a basketball game, and if you came across somebody who was suffering and likely to die, wouldn't you want to do anything you could to save their life? It's like, to me, no different than any other life-saving equipment we have available around the island, like the AED machines that are located and posted. People know where to find them.
I mean, there's certainly people that don't understand drug addiction, don't understand harm reduction, think that providing clean needles is enabling drug use. We know that people are still going to use drugs either way, so we're not enabling them to use drugs, we're enabling them to live, to protect themselves, their bodies, their health, their family, until they can get the treatment that they need and deserve.
Substance abuse is a brain disease, and people deserve our compassion, and we need to be patient with them because these changes don't occur overnight. They don't go away overnight with treatment. When you get dependent on a substance, it actually makes physical changes in your brain. Things get rewired. Your brain doesn't work like it's supposed to. We can see on the MRI scans, we can see on the functional scans that the circuits are different. And that leads to severe craving for the drug. It leads to loss of control over behaviors normally because just things aren't wired right. People who suffer from substance abuse, they might not keep their promises as a family member or their obligations. So we get a stigma going on about people being addicts, and that becomes a label that says this person is not trustworthy, this person is not somebody who deserves help. We don't do that with people who have diabetes, but we do that with people who have substance abuse. And it's because of the behavioral problems that are part of the disease.
2021 was the deadliest year in Maine's opioid epidemic. What we're missing is people being brave enough to come forward and tell their story because of the stigma that's attached to it. Right? We can't have a conversation without reducing stigma. There is almost more stigma in seeking help than there is being in active use.
It's really hard to ask for help if you feel like when you ask, people are just going to judge you. And so a lot of the times it's actually easier to suffer alone than try to get the resources you might need because you're afraid of what other people in the community are going to think of you. And we all live in this small community, and word spreads fast and often very untrue. So, I mean, if I was someone that needed recovery resources or just needed someone to talk to, I would be hesitant about it also because you don't want people to think negatively of you, especially where we live.
So I think that one of the things that makes this island community is really special is that we show up to help each other, and that shouldn't stop just because your medical condition happens to be substance use disorder. And until we get to a place where it doesn't matter what your medical condition is, we're gonna rally and we're gonna lift you up and we're gonna help you to be successful. We aren't done doing the work that needs to be done here.